Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone. Tobie's here with me. This episode, Tobie's telling me about Joe Hill's The Fireman. It's going to be a pretty spoiler-free episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. What have you got for us this week?
So for me, my bringing to the table is Joe Hill's The Fireman.
Nice.
So it's, I think, a rather apt book for the current times, with the old COVID and everybody being in lockdown and whatnot, because this is a post-apocalyptic, not so much horror, maybe a thriller. So it's set in a world where a virus called Draco Incendiary Tyroptophyron, something like that, not really scale, probably, but more commonly known as dragon scale, has affected the human race. So it's like a spore that initially shows up on the skin as like a black line or vein that starts to spread, and then over time it starts to scale and the skin starts to turn scaly. And then, because it's a virus, its sole purpose is to replicate and survive. So when the host that it's on the skin of gets to a point where they're starting to panic and they become really nervous and unhappy and just unsettled by the fact that this thing is growing, and although it's not affecting them in any way, adversely, it's still growing. And when they start to panic, it starts to react to that and increases its spread. So therefore you get this cycle of people panicking, they've caught it, so therefore it gets worse. The virus starts to spread to the point where it covers the entire body, and then they spontaneously combust.
Okay.
They burst in flames, basically. And this is spread quite rapidly throughout the city, because as soon as this virus explodes the person it's inhabiting, the ash then floats up into the air and infects everything else. If you touch it, it gets in your eyes, it gets in your mouth, anything like that, then you've got it. It just poof, 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 poof. And over time, you find out that's what happens and why the world ends up in this post-apocalyptic state. But we see this through the eyes of a female character who's our protagonist, called Harper. She is a nursery nurse. So she works with young children, and we open with her I believe we open, if I remember rightly, in a classroom, and she's teaching, and one of the kids becomes distracted by something going on outside, and it's a man stumbling across this courtyard who has this disease, and that's where you are introduced to her, the disease and everything.
So society's still running at the beginning.
Yeah, so that million people have it at the beginning of the book, but it's spreading. And she's pregnant as well. She sees this happen at the school, and then goes home to her husband and tells her husband about it. And he's a bit blasé about it, because it's all sort of happening off in the distance. It's not, this is the first time it's come to a thing. And he's kind of like tetchy, but not overly overwhelmed by it. He seems like a decent guy. But his character rapidly unfolds not to be the nice person he originally turned out to be, because of the panic of the virus and everything, and him catching it. And his wife decides that she's going to, because she's got like the Mary Poppins syndrome, where she thinks everything is good and sees everything through rose-tinted glasses. So she volunteers at a local hospital where the cases of dragon scale are prevalent, and he's not happy about that. And she's pregnant as well. So we follow that through her eyes. There's a thing that happens between her and the husband, and while she's in the hospital, a dragon scale person explodes and the hospital catches fire, and she's rescued by the title of the book, The Fireman, and he's brought a kid in called Nick, who plays a big part as well, who's deaf. So you've got these three main characters, and he's this big, hulking, great big, stereotypical burly guy, put your arms around you, bear of a man, but very quiet and subdued, and doesn't really say a lot throughout the novel at all. Actually, he's just there. And yeah, so that happens. He rescues her, and then you follow her on this journey as society's falling down around them to this where the book is. So that's the first half of the book, or the first third of the book. The second third of the book is about the establishment of where they are. It's not so much about what the virus is or where it came from or any of that sort of thing, because it's just you're seeing it through a small town, one person's eyes. So it's very localized to the area and to the people that you meet. And you live it through like news clippings and stuff like that.
Right. I'm guessing the novel takes place over the pregnancy.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not like a spanning epic of 10 years after.
No, it's all within the space of 9 months. And then you've got the second half of the book, which is about kind of living with this increasing scale disease, the panic of the baby, the society that she falls into and in with, and how they deal with it.
Is there a sense throughout the book that society is getting worse towards the end of the book, or it's hit a point where it's trying to rebuild? Like,
now this is
in two halves of the book.
In my research, Joe Hill mentioned that he was reading Cormac McCarthy's The Road. It was an interview that he'd done with some newspaper. He was reading Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and he said that he read this section in there where society had gone down the route of depravity and stuff like that, and there was people spit roasting a baby over a fire. And he said he couldn't work out whether it was the most horrific thing he'd ever read in a post-apocalyptic novel or the funniest. And he said that what he found difficult about these post-apocalyptic novels is that, and I think this is mirrored in what's going on today, the sense that the human race will go that direction into the dark side and the roasting of babies and the eating of each other and attacking each other. He said, we're not naturally like that. We like hugs. You know, we find comfort in each other. There is a sense of togetherness when the chips are down. On the whole, not everyone, but on the whole, that is the general population.
Right. I guess it's easier for us to explore the darker side of human nature, because it takes you into more, I guess, exciting areas of writing.
So in this, he calls this the anti-apocalyptic novel, in the sense that it's not all bad. There isn't, there are factions of the book where you see the darker side of society, but on the whole, everybody's trying to get by and help each other. And that carries throughout the second part of the book. And then you get into the third part of the book where twists come in and reveals happen. And
right.
Sort of.
Okay.
It's an absolute beast. It's like 700 and something pages. Yeah, 746 pages. So it's a tube of a book.
Does it read easy?
Yes.
Some big books do and some don't.
No, it doesn't. It is a bit slow in the middle.
Like, does it need to be that length? Slight trimming, maybe.
Yeah, you could possibly trim a little bit at the middle. It goes into quite a bit of depth about about characters that you meet in the second part of the book. It's interesting what happens to those characters and the amount of depth they go into, and where their trajectory takes them, that sort of thing. So you could possibly trim a little, but who am I to react to this book? I mean, I read it, I thoroughly enjoyed it from cover to cover. It was very well written. There were some really nice action sequences in there.
Okay, it's certainly on my list to read book. I know I haven't read any of Joe Hill's, and I think you've told me in the past that although you like this one, it's actually not his best one. But the synopsis, I guess the plot I know of, is the most intriguing of everything of his I've read. Like, this is the one that pulls me in the most, even if people tell me that some of his others are better. This one is the highest on my list.
Yeah, no, he sets the world up really well. There are some really nice tight sequences in there, and there's some really good action sequences, gunplay and all that sort of thing, which you don't often. I haven't often read about. Like squad-based sort of things going on.
Oh, okay, so there's some sort of modern action, I suppose.
And he's got some great. It's grounded, but it has fanciful elements as well. That sort of thing.
The very name of the you call it like a spore infection, the virus.
Yeah.
It sounds very fantastical.
Yeah,
you know,
75% of the spore, the virus, what he took to make the virus up, actually exists in the real world.
When was this written?
2017, I think, or maybe 2016.
So it's fairly recent in the world.
Yeah, 2016.
Oh, okay. I am wondering what came first. I mean, it doesn't share that many similarities, and I guess it has been done before. I know Brian Aldiss does a lot of this stuff, but the Girl with the Gifts has it's a similar like a way of infection with the sporing.
I would say this got some. Having seen The Girl with the Gifts, not read it, this has more in common feel and pacing and delivery with Station 11.
Okay, that's a book we both read some while ago. I didn't mind it, but I didn't love it. It was quite meandering, and I guess it was made up of 3 timelines. But it did sort of. I guess it took its time. That book. It was never in a hurry.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Fireman's like, but it has a bit more popcorn action based sequences than whereas Stations 11 is very sort of meditative and deliberate.
And I guess you could say, at least to a point, it shares similar themes on. I guess you get the feel it's gone back to almost a medieval style of sort of trading and growing crop, and so there are kind of villains, but it's like that main group of people are just kind of artists putting on shows around the world. So that although there's danger, it's not like desolate and everything is about survival.
Yeah, when I was going back through reading this in my head, there were elements I was thinking, right, did that happen in this, or did that happen in Stations 11?
Okay, right, yeah.
It also, there's a lot of this is the Stand, basically. It's been labelled since it came out because it's post-apocalyptic. Obviously, Stephen King's The Stand is post-apocalyptic, and there are similar elements. Again, in this thing that I read, he has characters that have got nods to characters from The Stand. Like there's a woman called Mother Carol, who's very much in the vein of Mother. The deaf kid is called Nick, and Nick Andros was the deaf kid or the deaf guy in The Stand. Yeah, those are the 2 tenuous links that he referenced when writing. Also, another tidbit: the title, The Fireman, was originally the title that Ray Bradbury was going to use for Fahrenheit 415, 514, 451, whatever it is. I heard that title and thought that's a really great title. And then he released the book and changed it to that, Fahrenheit 451. And he's like, right, I want to nick the title then.
But yeah, so you like this overall?
Yeah, definitely. It was really good. I've read 2 of it now, maybe 3. I'm currently reading short stories. I'm about halfway through Snapshot, which is actually quite good so far. Yeah, and the other one I read was Heart-Shaped Box, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was an amazing book. He writes really good, strong female characters, I think. Because Harper in this is really strong, obviously, female character. Then you've got the girl in Nosferatu, the mother. She's like resilient rather than strong. She's actually got a lot of issues going on.
Do you ever get the sense that although he's writing strong woman, you know it's a guy writing this? Is it ever problematic, or are any reviews of it being problematic?
Yeah, is it?
I mean, I'm guessing they're kind of post-apocalyptic and adventure, so you can get away with more because you're out of the world element, and it's. I'm just guessing it's not really books about womanhood or.
No. It's a woman in the same situation. It's just a character dealing with an extreme situation and how they would react to it. So it's about, if you develop good characterization and you have a natural character, then which I think he does really well,
Mm.
then it shouldn't feel cliche because they'll do things that they would naturally do. It's when they start doing things that don't feel natural and it jars with what you expect them to do, that then you know that something's gone awry. And I don't think that ever happens or hasn't happened yet in many of the books I've read.
Okay, yeah. So the lead is pregnant through, I'm guessing, at least half the novel. I've read a few where maybe not the main character, but it often feels like it becomes boring, or it became too easy that I guess it represents you've got to protect this innocent life. But I feel like it's not always done well, especially it can kind of feel lazy sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
who is the most vulnerable person that society would want to feel obliged to save, or that you would want to save because there is like a whole life that's had no chance. How does that come off in this? Is it a first or third person narrative? Do you know?
Ooh.
Like a week ahead?
Yeah, third person, I think.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah, pretty sure it is.
Hmm.
You're on the shoulder of Harper through most of the story.
Okay.
So I guess that would make it first person, would it? Okay, so yeah, but probably first person. I don't think it often drifts away from her to somebody else. Although the Fireman has his moments. But yeah, we see the world through Harper's eyes, and the pregnancy's always there, but it's never the main focus. It's not about.
Are you reminded of it every page or every other page?
No.
Okay, it's quite a big book.
It just comes in and out, and depending. The closer you get to the pregnancy, the more urgency there is behind it.
Of course.
And the long treks and all that sort of stuff. Ellie takes its toll. And some of the things she has to go through, the situation she finds herself in, makes it difficult. But no, she is written really well. She's very well rounded. Maybe a little bit too rose tinted, but that is the Mary Poppins syndrome thing that she deliberately.
I'm not. I guess I've heard that before, but I've never really used it or seen it used. Is that something within the book, or something you've
within the book? He references Mary Poppins quite often.
Okay, and that means like someone who just always sees the best in things?
Yeah. If something good happens, she wants everybody to burst into song and celebrate.
Okay, I see. Right.
He fantasizes this sort of scenarios. So yes, it's what was I going to say? The Fireman, going back to the big burliness, he is very protective. He is very matriarchal, the alpha male type of thing. He has that sense of. He's probably one of the most easiest characters in the book to write, I think, because he is a collection of cliches of the big, strong, muscular guy, quiet, brooding, dark, but also alluring and aloof and frustrating, and all of those sort of stereotypical things that you find in those sorts of romance novels and Pride and Prejudice.
A nice Heathcliff.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've had feedback that we don't go into the themes enough.
Yes.
And it doesn't always feel that simple, especially because our research is often done the morning of. I'm not going to throw you in it, but I will ask what would you say the Fireman represents? If he's not the star of the book, but the book is named after him, and I assume it has to be more than just he liked the idea of the title being The Fireman. What would you say he represents in the book? Or have I thrown too much for hardball?
It's a good question, because you've chosen the right character to pick. Because his story arc is huge, and what he goes through is transformative. Without going into spoilers, it's really difficult to quantify what exactly he is and what he becomes and what happens. And what does he represent? Because, like I said, he feels like this big family man that just puts his arms around you and will protect you But most of the rest of the thing is just like, right, well, I've done what I need to do. I'm now going to be over here
Mm.
in the
I
background.
guess
You can't, but when you need me, I'll just come in and douche.
because it sounds like he starts off where a lot of these similar characters would end off in a novel. You know, I guess like the Han Solo type, where like they need to learn throughout the events that other people, and in this case, like we said, the baby represents new life and the future. This character in other lesser post-apocalypse needs to sort of stow their own selfishness and greeds, and fears for himself, and see that bigger picture that the future and stuff matters. But it sounds like this character starts there.
He's definitely on the doorstep of it. I mean, he's not completely. He's a reluctant hero, but he's a fireman, so in most people's eyes, he literally has to walk in a door and women go weak at the knees. It's that sort of thing. So he's already at that point in
I guess
being,
it's sort of in his nature to just sort of do the right thing, or just to be in harm's way for the betterment of something.
But like I said, he is hardly in the book. He's just, when he is there, he's just woof. This just dwarfs everybody else in
He's
all
like
characters.
the Fonz. He's like the Fonz in Happy Days. He's not in every episode, but
When
everyone
he's
knows him.
yeah.
So when we reach Stephen King, he often links to his sort of King universe or novels, or even if they're not linked in the universe, there's just cheeky references. But is this something that Joe Hill does? Now you've read a few, although there's nods to Stephen King, like to his dad, but not actually inverse, right? Like they're not connected in any way.
No. I don't think I've read anything yet. Like Nosferatu is probably the one that's got the most Easter eggs, if you want to call them.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't seem like something, because the whole point, I think you told me that why is he Joe Hill and not Joe King, was initially when he started, he just didn't want to have that weight of, being a Stephen King son.
Yes. I think the virus in this is really good. I love the way that the virus interacts and the way it works, and some of the revelations and things like that about the virus.
It's not really an anticlimactic question, but like within the world, how is it relayed in the media, the virus? Because now, we're living, this is recorded in 2020, well into the year. So often books, they sort of do or don't address it, but how it's sort of reported around the world. And I guess now we can say we kind of know how these things.
Yeah, and this is very good. Like I was saying, I think what happens in here and the anti-apocalyptic take on this novel that Joe Hill deliberately stuck with is being mirrored in what's happening now. Like, people aren't going savage. Yes, there was a rush on stockpiling toilet rolls and soap and hand wash, but that settled down after a while. Now everybody's like, well, it's not actually, we can do this. All the clapping and all the coming together and going around and helping people that need help in the community and putting yourself in harm's way, going to make PPE and all that sort of thing. That sort of stuff comes out in this book. And there's similarities to that. And what was your question again, sorry?
Like within the book, you said you see snippets of the media and newspapers. Like how does it?
So it's like it is now. Because it's, again, it's not massively prevalent. It's just happening, and she very quickly finds herself isolated from the rest of the world in the book. So you kind of don't get a massive load of news stories or her seeing TV things, but that when you do get that, that's how it comes through. She'll hear it on the radio, or she'll see it on Twitter, or it'll come through the TV and like a news broadcast or something. Her husband will be watching it, glued to it when she comes home from the hospital. She's working in a hospital, she gets tidbits through there. But within the first 200 pages, you're out of an environment where she's able to absorb, and you as a reader are able to absorb this external information overload, as it were, about what everything else is happening, and then you just get snippets from people who are running and surviving, and this is happening over here. Well, I've heard if you go over there, there's like the refuge, but if you've got the disease, then this will happen to you.
Yeah, I do look forward to, I guess, future post-apocalypse novels that
Yeah,
come
how
out now. One thing I find, I'm listening to the radio a lot these days,
Mhm.
and there's just a high amount of corporate adverts which push through care and then try and sell you a car. It's kind of strange and surreal, but it seems like a lot of the big ones are doing it. It's like this sort of harp comes on and it talks about safety and care and getting through it. And then I don't want to say a brand name. It tells you a deal where you can go out and buy a new car or a sofa, and it
Yeah.
seems quite strange and surreal. I don't know if you listen to podcasts. I was listening to the Adam Buxton one, and he was talking with Louis Theroux, and it's funny because they were talking about the things that have become like kind of sweet and endearing that have sort of turned and become annoying, whether they're true or not. And they're saying one thing is people saying that it's going to bring the best out of us and bring the world together. Like that was kind of a saying in the beginning some months ago, but now whether it's true or not, it's just this kind of irritating cliche. So yeah, I guess I don't know. We'll see what the future holds when it comes to.
But that's again, I think that what you say there. Those are characters in this book that would say that, and there are characters in this book that would say, "No, of course not. Why? It's everybody. It is going to change people for the good. There is going to be this massive shift in the way that people operate and talk with each other, and how close it will bring communities. Seeing it through rose-tinted glasses, always looking for the best in a bad situation, and that's what Harkerism is, definitely.
I mean, I guess the reality is
Definitely.
it can bring out the best, but it also can bring out the worst.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's interesting to read a post-apocalyptic novel that doesn't double down on the bad, the grim, like the Walking Dead series. Like it got to a point where it was just like, I don't want to see people getting killed all the time. There is no hope in this.
I am.
need hope to cling on to make it through the story. I don't want a hopeless tale that ends badly, because why would I read that? Even good feelings, good feelings. I think it'd make a good film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that in there that would. I think it'd be either a good mini series or a film or something like that. Netflix miniseries.
I get the feel, and I guess just from the little I know of it and like some of your descriptions, like it's one of those books that quite easily plays out as a film in your head when you're reading it.
Yeah, but it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go.
Okay, there are some surprises.
Yeah, definitely.
Just in a good way, like when you first read it, because sometimes there's a mix when things, the whole subvert expectations has become a big thing in the last few years due to these Star Wars.
When I reading the reviews, a lot of people said that they had expectations on a direction the book was going to go, and it didn't do that, and therefore they were like, it knocked the wind out of their sails a bit, so that they therefore found it plodding and a bit sort of, oh, this isn't what I wanted to read. Suddenly finish it, whereas other people loved the fact that he subverted it and went a different direction. And
right, so it's sort of down to readers' discretion whether they, want to be led on. I guess it kind of reminds me of we recently watched the follow-up to Get Out, Us.
Oh yes.
And it hits a halfway point, and it just goes where I can imagine no one was expecting it to sort of broaden out, and a mixture of being excited and not knowing how it's going to play out as a result, but also disappointed that we're not going to go down the route I thought it would. So a sort of, I don't know, bittersweet, but just a mix of wishing there was an alternate version where I get the movie I wanted. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again next episode. Until then, have a great day and support your local bookstore.